When you left the music industry in 1993, was this part of it where that kind of that foundation or that rawness is kind of escapes you because of everything that happens around you?
I think the music business is a business at the end of the day, and I got into it and into being in bands and stuff just because of the love of music, which is what every artist will tell you, I'm sure. I think some people are better at others at being pop stars or rock stars. Some people are better at dealing with the whole media circus of it all. And also I think some people, and I was not one of those people, it's more about what they do live, or that's a huge part of it. It's not just the records. And obviously I worked with Stock Aitken Waterman, I came out of that whole kind of very British pop thing. And that was not about playing live. That was about the records and then doing the interviews for the records, the promotion. And it's not really related to music. Once you've made the music, it's like you get a year away from it and you're still promoting that record. And it's like, I haven't sang those songs for a long, in fact, I couldn't even remember all the words to them sometimes, do you know what I mean?
Right.
And you kind of think, well, there's something wrong with this picture, you know what I mean? So anyway, I mean, I was really lucky. I got an amazing start where the first record was a, huge record. So I never had that build-up of like doing little small clubs and then maybe bigger clubs and then theatres and really trying to get the music across to people by singing it to them, playing it to them. We just kind of we put a record out and kind of like 5 weeks later, or let's say a few months later, I've been #1 almost everywhere.
Right.
So you don't need to go to small clubs and come to Amsterdam or Berlin or what have you and kind of say, look, there's this guy, he's got a record, you really need to hear him sing, he's still there. There's none of that. It was just like, right, get him on the biggest TV show the country's got because he's only coming for one day.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And then it turns into something else. It just turns into this. And also I think as well, the late 80s, I think pop music forgot about being able to sing. It wasn't really about that. It was about records. Stock Aitken Waterman. It wasn't about, well, can you really sing, or are we just going to make a really good pop record? You know what I mean? It wasn't about whether you could do it live. Nobody cared whether you could do it live. You know what I mean? It was just, it was about the video as well. Because that's the era of MTV. The mid to late 80s and onwards. It was about MTV. It was about videos. So.
And then. Because in 1993 you left it behind you. Did you miss? You mentioned that performing live. Did you miss it?
I mean, I missed performing live because I just didn't do enough of that anyway.
Sure.
We toured the world and it was amazing, but there wasn't enough of that really. So yeah, I think I probably missed certain parts of it, but I didn't quit and then kind of regret it a month later.
Right.
I really loved the fact that I stopped when I stopped, because I think most people in pop music, like proper pop music, you don't get very long anyway, unless something really bizarre is happening. Madonna did it. Even Kylie's done it, you could say. You know what I mean? But I mean, I don't think it's normal for people to have a 25-year career. It's normally that you get 4 or 5 years, and either people don't want you anymore, or you burn out, or whatever. And I just had enough of it. I just had enough. If I'm honest, I'd had enough of doing this. I wanted to sing.
Sure.
And I don't know, there's just a few things about the way the business was, and sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you're looking at the record company and they're looking at you and you're thinking they don't really want to, do they want to do this? Do they want me to do this anymore? Because I want to make slightly different records. We did a record where the first single was called Cry for Help and it had a gospel choir, which is something I'd always loved that. I'd always wanted to do that kind of a thing. And it did okay. It was a top 10 in America and different parts of the world, but it wasn't that Stock Aitken Waterman kind of like, wow, we're going to have a mega hit again.
Sure.
And I think there was a part of me just thinking, well, I'm really glad I've made that album and I made a record after that as well and stuff, because I've done some things on this record that I could have never have done at Stock Aitken Waterman's place, but there'll be memories that I'll have forever.
Right.
I've met 2 of my favourite drummers of all time. I've sat on Jeff Porcaro's drum kit and I've had him talk to me about why he wears certain kinds of boots, because that's how he likes to play.
Right.
And that for me is a memory I will never ever forget. Because as a kid, he was a god. And a guy called Vinnie Caliuti, who's one of my all-time favourite drummers, played on that song "Cry for Help." You know, I mean, you know, I've been in the control room, then I've gone out and played his drum kit.
Right.
And those are things, if I'm really honest, you can't even buy them.
Sure.
Well, maybe you can, but you know what I mean. They're moments that you can't really buy. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not. You have to have been lucky enough to get to that situation, and don't get me wrong. I'll probably remember Never Gonna Give You Up more than those two moments, because of it changed my life, and it gave me a great life, an easy life. But in terms of moments of actually. Just things that, like I say, that are just a bit like you can't buy them, you can't replace them. They're just impossible moments.
Right.
And maybe I'm being a bit of a muso there, but
No, but
you know,
I get it. Yeah.
you know, I played drums as a kid, so I had posters on my wall. You know, Stuart Copeland was one of my all-time favourites, and if I could have got him on a record, I would have done. But I don't think that would have been possible. You know, and that's, I think a lot of young people go through that when you're learning an instrument.
Of course.
You have your idols, and you know, and I got to fulfill a few of those moments. So.
And well, there was a stint in the 2000s where you released, I believe it was 2 albums.
Yeah, I did a couple of projects. Yeah, but nothing where I didn't really kind of sit down and I don't feel as connected as I feel more connected with this than I've ever felt, because I basically
Yeah, how come?
Because I've got a studio at home, which is behind our kitchen, and so I go in, make a coffee, in my dressing gown sometimes, and I go in there and I make music until I like it enough. And no one else comes in the room until I like it enough. And then I've had a friend of mine mix it, and also he's engineered some of it as well. So, but until it's what I want it to be, no one even gets to hear it, apart from my wife. And in that way, I think it's my record more than ever. Because I think if you're signed to a record label and that record label feels that you fit a certain thing, then in certain ways that they will try and put, you know, they'll get a producer that's going to make it a bit like this. And that could be a jazz record, by the way. It could be any genre of music. I'd just say I'm okay for a few minutes, I'm fine. If my pasta goes cold, I'll be all right. So I kind of wanted to make a record, or at least I wanted to get the music to a certain point where I could get some mixes done, and then I could say, right, I'm going to go and see a record company. I don't want to be an old guy on a record label and they're all sat around going, what do we do with him?
How we market it?
What are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to take something and say, can you do something with that? And for them to listen to it and say, no, or yes. And luckily one said yes, and it just so happens it's the label I used to be with, so that's great. There's like I feel good about that. Yeah, so I'm really excited, and I really love this record, probably more even than my first album, because even though I've got amazing memories of that and it changed my life, this is a bit more, it's my record, you know. It might not even be as good as my first one, but it doesn't matter. It's my record, do you know what I mean? So.
Yes. Now, I have one final question,
Sure.
because the album is called 50.
Yeah.
And how come turning 50 is an important thing for you?
I think, to be honest, just even going back to being a kid and knowing people who are 50, parents, relatives, whatever, you kind of think 50, wow. And then as you get a bit older and it gets closer, it's not, age has changed as well. I mean, I would say that because I'm 50, but it has, you know, people who are in their 50s are doing stuff that people wouldn't have dreamed of doing 25, 30 years ago. So, you know, going to gigs, wearing trainers, you know, going to work in a t-shirt, do you know what I mean? That just wouldn't have, that wasn't the way things were. But for me, I think what's happened is when I was making, you know, when these songs started turning into a record, I thought, I'm going to be 50 when I release this. And then I've kind of thought, well, in the same way that when I was 21, Never Gonna Give You Up came out, I remember being 21. It's in like a little box of time for me. And all the other records that were around, and a lot of the people that I met and the situations I was in, it's like this thing that I can easily be transported back to that moment. because a lot of really big things happened in my life. And I'm not saying big things are going to happen because of this, but I'm going to remember being 50. It's going to be a point in my life that I'm going to not look and go, oh my word, I'm 50. I'm going to look at it and go, great, I made a record when I was 50. I put a record out when I was 50.
Did you think you would do this or put a record out in 1993 when you were kind of left behind?
No. I thought I was retired for good, and that'd be it. Yeah. And I wanted to kind of, the idea of writing songs. I didn't want to just leave music forever and just say, the idea of writing for other people was really appealing because I could still be doing music, but I don't have to be out there, And also I thought, well, I might do little projects and things, but I'm just not going to be signed to a big record label and be doing that whole, crazy thing. But yeah, I think it's, I feel good. I feel really happy where I am, and I'm really proud of myself, if I'm honest. And I think being in the music business and being proud of yourself don't always go together. And I'm really happy right now, so it's good.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers. Great.